A heavy fog clung to the grounds of Greyhaven Manor, muffling the world in a ghostly silence. Inside, a single light flickered in the library, where Lord Edward Grey lay lifeless beside his mahogany desk, a curious silver pendant clutched in his hand. The room smelled faintly of jasmine and gunpowder. Moments later, Hercule Poirot stepped through the grand doorway, his mustache perfectly symmetrical, his eyes sharp with suspicion. "Mon ami," he murmured to Inspector Japp. "It is most peculiar, no sign of struggle, yet terror remains in the air." Outside, the grandfather clock struck midnight, and the mystery began. Chapter 1. The Midnight Discovery. The fog rolled across the sprawling grounds of Greyhaven Manor like a living, breathing entity, curling around the tall yews and creeping along the cobbled drive. The lamps lining the estate's entrance flickered weakly, their gas flames quivering under the weight of the damp night air. Inside the grand manor, the world felt altogether smaller yet heavier, the weight of silence pressing down, broken only by the occasional sigh of wind against the towering stone walls. It was in the library, that sanctum of dark, polished wood and dimly gleaming brass, where the first whisper of tragedy made itself known. Lord Edward Grey, Master of Greyhaven, lay sprawled beside his mahogany desk, a silver pendant clutched unconsciously in his right hand. His eyes were open, staring blankly at the ceiling, reflecting the faint light of the oil lamp nearby. The fire in the hearth had burned low, casting uneven shadows across shelves lined with leather-bound tomes, each spine gilded with gold, as though the weight of knowledge were mocking the absence of life in the room. Inspector Japp, a man whose weathered face rarely betrayed emotion, stepped carefully over the threshold. His gaze swept across the scene with clinical detachment, noting the precise angle of the fallen chair and the faint smear of blood on the edge of the carpet. "Mon Dieu," he muttered under his breath. "It is peculiar. No signs of forced entry, no struggle. And yet, the air itself is telling me something dreadful has occurred." From the shadows at the doorway emerged Hercule Poirot, his steps measured, his gloved hands folded neatly behind his back. His signature mustache twitched ever so slightly, a subtle, almost imperceptible sign of mental activity. Poirot's eyes, sharp as a hawk's, scanned every detail with a meticulousness that bordered on obsession. "Mon ami," he said softly to Japp, his voice smooth yet tinged with urgency. "Observe the position of the body, the angle of the hand clutching this pendant. Note the absence of footprints upon the carpet, and yet—" He bent slightly, lowering his face to examine the pendant. "There is the scent of jasmine and something unexpected. Sea salt?" His brow furrowed. "Curious indeed. Our victim has returned from somewhere, or someone has brought the sea to him." Japp, familiar with Poirot's penchant for over-precise observation, could not help but follow his gaze to the delicate chain. It shimmered faintly under the lamp, almost luminous against the mahogany. "A trinket of little consequence?" he asked. "On the contrary, my friend," Poirot replied. "The smallest detail may be the key to the entire puzzle. Consider, why would a man clutch a pendant at the moment of death? There is emotion here, fear, surprise, recognition. All possibilities must be weighed. And yet the question remains, who and why? At that moment, the distant chime of the grandfather clock echoed through the halls, striking midnight with a sonorous resonance that seemed to vibrate into every corner of the house. The sound startled Clara Grey, the victim's niece, who had entered the room on Japp's invitation. Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the edge of a nearby chair, her pale face reflecting the flickering firelight. "Uncle," she whispered, her voice fragile, How did this happen?" Poirot turned to her, bowing slightly in acknowledgement. Mademoiselle Gray, I assure you the solution lies not in panic but in careful observation. Tell me, did you hear anything unusual this evening? Clara shook her head. Nothing. Only the wind. And then, the scream. Her voice faltered and she pressed a hand to her chest as though trying to restrain a rising hysteria. I ran to the library as fast as I could, but it was already too late. Poirot nodded solemnly. The scream, yes. A significant clue, though it is merely the opening act. Let us now consider the environment. He gestured to the room. The window is closed, yet the curtains flutter. There is a draught here that does not belong. And the fireplace, look closely. Someone has extinguished it carefully, but not thoroughly. Why? Perhaps to conceal the scent, perhaps to ensure darkness. Observe all, my friend, and the truth shall appear. Jap, feeling the tension in the room, scratched his chin thoughtfully. Do you think this was murder, Poirot? Or perhaps an accident? Poirot's eyes narrowed, the gleam of certainty unmistakable. Accident does not bring such precise terror, n'est-ce pas? The hand clutching the pendant, the undisturbed books, the slight trace of perfume on the edge of the desk. No, my friend. Murder, orchestrated with patience, with cunning. Our culprit knew Lord Grey intimately, and that, I suspect, is the most dangerous element of all. Clara's gaze flicked to the shelves and a subtle shiver ran down her spine. Could it be someone from the house? She asked, her voice barely audible. A servant? A guest? Poirot's gaze swept over the assembled household staff who had now gathered at the doorway, their expressions ranging from curiosity to apprehension. It is always within the house, mademoiselle, that secrets hide. Often the eyes see what the ears do not. Often the servant knows far more than the master suspects. Yet one must consider every possibility. The butler, a tall, austere man named Mr. Hollingsworth, stepped forward. Inspector Jap, we've been loyal to Lord Grey for decades. We would never... Poirot raised a hand, ever polite, ever measured. Patience, monsieur. Loyalty is commendable, yet truth is not swayed by sentiment. It is merely observed with rigor and precision. Tell me, where was each of you when the clock struck 12? A murmur rippled through the room as the staff exchanged uneasy glances. Clara's young face, pale under the lamp's glow, turned to the corner where Dr. Finch, the family physician, stood with an inscrutable expression. I was checking on the guest rooms, Dr. Finch stated calmly, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. Poirot's lips curved slightly, ever so subtly. Interesting. And you, Mr. Hollingsworth? The butler straightened. I was preparing the late-night tea as usual. Nothing untoward occurred. And Lady Grey? Poirot inquired, directing his attention to the elegant matriarch now draped in a velvet shawl, her posture impeccably composed despite her evident distress. I retired to my room, she replied smoothly. I heard nothing, though I awoke briefly, sensing the chill of the night. Poirot's gaze returned to the silver pendant. And this, mademoiselle, may hold the greatest revelation of all. Observe the engraving, a small crest, faint but discernible. It belongs not to your family, but to a house of distant origin, foreign, maritime, associated with wealth and secrecy. Our victim was in contact with someone whose identity he kept carefully concealed. That someone may be our culprit. The clock chimed again, echoing through the empty corridors, each stroke resonating with an ominous clarity. Poirot's eyes flicked to the window, to the faint footprints in the dew-laden garden outside. Notice, he said softly, that no footprints enter the room. Our murderer moved with care and yet left a message, intentionally or not, within the pendant itself. A signature, subtle, refined yet screaming in silence. Japp frowned. So we have motive but no suspect? Poirot shook his head. Mon ami, we have the beginnings of a map. Each clue, each observation, each subtle inflection in a person's behavior will lead us to the answer. Patience is required. The mind must follow the threads, delicate though they may be, until the tapestry of truth is revealed. A sudden knock on the library door startled all. A young maid, pale and trembling, entered holding a telegram. "For Lord Grey," she stammered. Poirot took it carefully, his eyes scanning the message with rapid precision. "Ah," he murmured, "even in death the deceased communicates. Observe, Japp, the handwriting, the ink, the careful phrasing. Someone sought him tonight. Someone whose intentions were complicated." Clara's hands shook as she took a tentative step closer. "Uncle, would he have expected this?" Poirot's eyes softened momentarily, though the glint of deduction never left them. Expect? Perhaps, but foresee? Impossible. There is always a surprise in human affairs, and Greyhaven Manor has secrets, mademoiselle, secrets that will emerge one by one like fish rising from the depths of a dark lake. Outside, the fog thickened, swirling around the manor as though the night itself were conspiring with unseen hands. Shadows stretched across the library floor, flickering in rhythm with the dying fire. The air seemed charged, electric with anticipation, the world holding its breath in the presence of a hidden truth. Poirot straightened, adjusting his gloves with meticulous care. "Tonight, my friends, we embark upon a journey into the mind of a killer. Every detail matters. Every glance, every gesture, every silence. Greyhaven Manor has become a stage, and all present are actors, some unwitting, some with knowledge. But by morning we shall illuminate the darkness. By morning the first pieces of the puzzle will be in place." The grandfather clock struck once more. Midnight had passed, yet the night seemed unending. And in the library, among the shadows and the faint scent of jasmine and salt, a mystery had begun. One that would unravel the lives of all who resided at Greyhaven Manor. Chapter 2. The Guests of Greyhaven. Greyhaven Manor, despite the tragedy that had unfolded the previous night, awoke slowly under the pale light of dawn. The heavy fog that had enshrouded the grounds lingered stubbornly, clinging to the sprawling lawns and the skeletal branches of the ancient yews. Inside, the mansion was eerily quiet, the usual bustle of morning routines suppressed by the shadow of the previous night's horror. The staff moved silently, their movements precise yet subdued, as though the very walls demanded respect for the departed. Hercule Poirot, impeccably dressed as ever, surveyed the grand hall with his sharp eyes. The morning sun filtered through the stained glass windows, casting prismatic patterns upon the marble floor. Yet the light did little to dispel the sense of unease that clung to every corner. He observed the arrangement of furniture, the faint scuff marks on the rug, the delicate cracks in the antique vases. Each detail a potential clue, each object a fragment of a larger puzzle. "Mon ami," he murmured to Inspector Japp, who followed closely behind, his expression one of mild frustration at the early hour. "Observe the manner in which the household responds to grief. Subtle signs of deception may be hidden beneath gestures of mourning. The human heart is complex, and grief can mask a multitude of intentions." Japp grunted. "You mean someone here is hiding something?" Poirot's eyes twitched with barely contained amusement. "Perhaps, perhaps not. But one must be vigilant. Let us begin with the guests, the very people who share the roof with us in this house of shadows." The first to appear was Lady Margaret Grey, the matriarch of Greyhaven Manor. She descended the grand staircase with the poise of a queen, her shawl of deep violet velvet draped elegantly over her shoulders. Her face was pale, almost luminous against the dark fabric, and her eyes, though steady, betrayed the faintest flicker of anxiety. "Inspector Japp," she said, her voice controlled and melodic. "I trust you are managing the investigation appropriately?" Japp inclined his head. "We are doing all we can, Lady Grey," Poirot interjected, his tone gentle yet firm. "Madame, I must ask you some questions regarding last night. It is essential to understand the environment, the interactions, the dynamics of those present." Lady Grey nodded, her fingers lightly gripping the banister. "Of course, I shall tell you everything I know, though I fear my knowledge is of little help." Poirot's gaze lingered on her, noting the way her eyes darted ever so slightly toward the drawing room. "Subtle, yes, but meaningful." "Madame," he said softly, "a small gesture can reveal more than the longest speech." Before Lady Grey could respond, Clara Grey, her niece, entered the hall. The young woman's eyes were red-rimmed from sleeplessness, and she carried herself with a fragility that spoke of shock as well as instinctive caution. "Good morning," she whispered, her voice barely above the rustle of her silk gown. I wanted to speak with Monsieur Poirot, if I may." "Of course, mademoiselle," Poirot replied with a polite bow. "Come, tell me everything you observed last night, however trivial it may appear. The smallest detail is often the key to the largest revelation." Clara led them toward a small sitting room overlooking the gardens, the air heavy with the scent of wet earth and frost. She sank into a high-backed chair, clutching a shawl around her shoulders. "Uncle Edward, he was not at ease last evening," she began. "I noticed it during dinner. He kept glancing toward the library door as though expecting someone, and he seemed troubled by the telegram that arrived earlier." Poirot's fingers steepled beneath his chin. "The telegram," he repeated. "Ah, yes, the message you delivered last night. Did you see anyone handle it besides yourself?" Clara shook her head. "No, I was instructed to bring it directly to him, but I am certain he was waiting for someone else. He seemed apprehensive." "Apprehensive," Poirot mused. "A subtle emotion, often hidden behind a mask of composure. And yet it can manifest in gestures, in posture, in the smallest movement of the hand." His eyes twitched toward the window. "Mademoiselle, did you notice anyone lurking near the library or along the corridors?" Clara hesitated, her gaze drifting to the frost-specked garden. I thought I saw a figure in the fog, but I could not be certain. It disappeared before I could be sure. Perhaps it was the wind, or perhaps not." Poirot smiled faintly, a glimmer of satisfaction in his eyes. "Ah, excellent. The mind remembers more than the senses. We shall explore this later. Now tell me about the other guests." They returned to the main hall where Poirot began his careful survey. Dr. Jonathan Finch, the family physician, appeared next. He was a man of medium height, wiry and precise, with spectacles perched precariously on his nose. His demeanor was calm, almost clinical, but Poirot noticed the slight tremor in his left hand as he adjusted the cuffs of his jacket. "Dr. Finch," Poirot began, "you were present last night, were you not?" "Yes, Monsieur Poirot," the doctor replied. "I attended to Lord Grey's routine medical check earlier in the evening, and later I was in my study preparing notes for the following day. I did not hear the events unfold." Poirot's gaze, ever penetrating, rested on him. "Indeed. And yet you were close enough to hear the scream?" Dr. Finch's lips tightened. Yes, I heard something, but I did not leave my room immediately. I assumed, well, I did not wish to interfere unnecessarily." "Ah, admirable restraint," Poirot said, his voice smooth as silk. "And tell me, doctor, did you notice anything unusual about Lord Grey's condition in the days preceding his demise?" Any new medications, ailments, or anxieties? Dr. Finch hesitated. He had seemed distracted, perhaps troubled by affairs of the estate. Nothing else, to my knowledge. Poirot nodded, making a subtle note in his mind. Distraction can be a symptom of fear, of anticipation. It is often underestimated. Next, Poirot turned his attention to the household staff. Mr. Hollingsworth, the butler, entered, bowing slightly. His tall, rigid frame conveyed an air of disciplined control, though Poirot's eyes discerned a flicker of unease in the tight set of his jaw. "Mr. Hollingsworth," Poirot said, "I require an account of the household last night. The movements of all who reside here must be known. Begin from the moment dinner concluded." The butler cleared his throat, his voice steady but measured. After dinner, Lady Grey retired to her room. Mademoiselle Clara went to the library briefly, then returned to her quarters. I oversaw the closing of windows and the extinguishing of lamps. Dr. Finch returned to his study. I then prepared the night tea as usual. Nothing seemed amiss until the scream was heard. Poirot's gaze never wavered. "Very good. But tell me, did anyone leave the house during this time?" Hollingsworth's eyes flickered briefly. "No, monsieur, none." Poirot nodded slowly. "Excellent, yet appearances can be deceiving. The mind must remain alert to subtle manipulations. We shall verify all statements carefully." As the morning progressed, Poirot observed each guest interact with one another. Lady Grey maintained her composed demeanor, offering polite words and gestures that seemed rehearsed. Clara's distress was genuine, yet interspersed with fleeting glances toward the corners of rooms and the stairwells as though seeking something unseen. Dr. Finch moved with clinical detachment, yet he occasionally allowed his eyes to linger on certain objects: the clock, the desk, the library door. Long enough for Poirot to note the incongruity. Poirot excused himself for a moment and returned to the library, now a scene of meticulous investigation. He examined the mahogany desk, tracing the faint scratches along its surface, observing the slight tilt of the fallen chair. The silver pendant, now cleaned and carefully placed on a cloth, seemed almost luminous in the morning light. He picked it up, turning it over in his hands. "A most curious object," he murmured, "not merely ornamental, but a message, a sign, a piece of the puzzle. Notice the faint scratches on its surface. These are not accidental. Someone desired it to be seen, to communicate something to the observer." Japp peered over his shoulder. "So it's a clue, then?" Poirot smiled faintly. "Ah, mon ami, it is more than a clue. It is a declaration, a whisper, a challenge. The murderer is clever. They wish us to see, yet not understand fully. The mind must interpret, the eye must perceive, and the heart must remain calm." As the sun climbed higher, illuminating the manor with weak gold light, Poirot gathered the household once more in the grand hall. "Mes amis," he began, his voice clear and precise, "the day ahead will reveal much. Each of you holds a piece of information, whether by knowledge or by action. I must ask that all remain within the house until we have completed our inquiries. No detail is insignificant, no gesture trivial." Lady Grey inclined her head. "Of course, Monsieur Poirot. Whatever you require." Clara, still pale and shaken, added, "I will answer any questions. Anything to find out what happened to Uncle Edward." Dr. Finch and Mr. Hollingsworth nodded solemnly. The air in the hall, heavy with anticipation, seemed to hum with the potential of revelation. Outside, the fog had begun to lift slightly, revealing the manicured gardens of Greyhaven Manor, yet the sense of suspense remained. Within these walls, secrets waited patiently to be discovered. Poirot's eyes swept across the assembled group. "Remember, mes amis, the The smallest action, the faintest sound, the briefest hesitation, these are the keys. Observe carefully, speak truthfully, and all shall be revealed. And so, as the manor stirred with the careful steps of those who remained within, the day began. Outside, the world was brightening, yet within Greyhaven Manor shadows lingered, waiting to be unraveled by the keen mind of Hercule Poirot. The first pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, but the full picture remained hidden. And in the silence between the ticking of the grandfather clock and the faint rustle of curtains, the story of Lord Edward Grey's final night whispered, waiting for the detective to listen. Chapter 3. The Silver Pendant's Secret. The morning light at Greyhaven Manor had become more insistent, cutting through the lingering fog in narrow shafts and illuminating the dust motes that floated lazily in the hallways. Yet despite the brightness outside, inside the manor there remained a shadow that no sunlight could dissipate, the shadow of Lord Edward Grey's untimely death. The household moved quietly, the servants performing their duties with a careful precision that betrayed the tension beneath the veneer of routine. Every footstep, every clink of china seemed amplified in the solemn air, as if the walls themselves held their breath in anticipation of what would come. Hercule Poirot, in his usual meticulous attire, sat in the library surrounded by evidence and notes. The silver pendant lay before him on a soft velvet cloth, catching the light and reflecting it in subtle flashes. He turned it over gently in his hands, the fingers of one hand tracing the delicate curves of its design, the other hand steady and deliberate. To an untrained observer, it was merely an elegant piece of jewelry. To Poirot, it was a confession in miniature, a cipher to be unraveled. "Mon ami," he murmured to Inspector Japp, who leaned against the fireplace with a notebook, pen poised. "Observe carefully. The pendant is not merely ornamental, it is a statement. Notice the engraving upon its reverse." Japp leaned closer, squinting at the small crest embossed into the silver. "Looks like a family crest," he said. "We've seen this before, haven't we?" Poirot shook his head, his thin mustache twitching in what might almost be called amusement. "No, mon ami. It is foreign, maritime in origin, belonging to a family with wealth and secrecy long distanced from England. Yet the clue is not only in the crest, but in the abrasions upon the surface. Someone has handled it with care, and yet deliberately left marks, a code in plain sight. Observe how these scratches curve, not random but intentional." Japp frowned. "Scratches? I thought it was just wear and tear." "Ah, non," Poirot exclaimed softly but firmly. "Wear does not form arcs in such a deliberate pattern. The owner, or perhaps the killer, wants the observer to notice something. Now the question, what?" Poirot's gaze shifted to Clara Grey, who had been quietly observing from the corner. Her presence, he noted, was hesitant but attentive. "Mademoiselle, did your uncle wear this pendant often?" Clara shook her head, a faint shiver passing over her. "No. He kept it locked in his desk drawer. He wore it only on rare occasions, usually when corresponding with distant relatives or during certain meetings. He seemed cautious with it, almost fearful." Poirot's fingers lingered on the pendant. "Ah, precisely. Fear is the motivator here. Our victim, though powerful in his estate, is constrained by knowledge or by past events. He did not trust this object. Yet last night he clutched it as if in supplication or perhaps in desperation." Japp muttered. "So what does that tell us? Someone killed him and left a piece of this, whatever it is, behind?" Poirot rose and began pacing slowly, each step precise and measured. "Mon ami, consider the possibilities. The pendant is a message, perhaps a summons. Someone is communicating through a personal token, a connection. It carries hints of intimacy, danger, and a secret the victim held close. Now I intend to learn what that secret is." He moved to the desk and retrieved a small magnifying glass. Holding it over the pendant, he examined the engraving with painstaking attention. "Notice," he said softly, "the faint traces of something unusual upon the metal. Salt. Sea salt. This suggests travel, or correspondence with someone at sea. And the faintest trace of perfume, floral, perhaps jasmine. A woman, perhaps? Someone close to the victim, or someone who wished to leave their signature upon this object." Clara's eyes widened. "You think someone delivered it to him last night?" Poirot nodded slowly. "Delivered, yes, or perhaps he brought it himself. But the combination of salt and floral scent is deliberate. This is not happenstance. Our murderer wishes to mislead, or to reveal selectively." At that moment, Dr. Finch entered the room, his expression a mix of concern and curiosity. "Poirot, may I ask your progress? Have you discovered anything significant about the pendant?" Poirot lifted his eyes to meet the doctor's. "Ah, doctor, you observe, yet perhaps too clinically. The pendant speaks, but only to those who listen with more than ears. The crest, the scratches, the scents, they form a pattern, a language. One must learn to read it." Dr. Finch stepped closer, inspecting the pendant under Poirot's direction. "A secret code, you think?" "Not merely a code," Poirot replied. "A signature, a map, a message, all concealed in this delicate object, and we must also consider the sender. Who knew of its existence? Who knew the meaning it held for Lord Grey? That is the question, my friend." While the adults discussed the pendant, Clara lingered at the edge of the room, her thoughts racing. She recalled her uncle's recent behavior, secretive letters, hushed conversations, and the unusual care with which he had managed his correspondence. Could it be related to his business affairs? She asked hesitantly. Poirot turned to her with a gleam in his eyes. "Possibly, mademoiselle. Yet often the most personal objects conceal the most personal secrets. The answer is not always in business, but in relationships, in trust, and in fear." He paused, lifting the pendant once more. "The engraving suggests maritime origin, yet our manor is landlocked. Why would Lord Grey possess this? Why would it be significant enough to be clutched at the moment of his death?" Japp scribbled notes furiously. "Are you suggesting blackmail, Poirot?" Poirot shook his head slowly. "Not yet, mon ami. The facts are delicate. We must proceed with care. A false assumption may mislead us entirely. Observe how he held the pendant, right hand above the chest, as if shielding the heart. This is not casual, this is fear." The discussion was interrupted by a soft knock at the library door. It opened slowly, revealing Mr. Hollingsworth, the butler. "Monsieur Poirot, a package has arrived by post. It bears no sender. I thought it might be of interest, considering the circumstances." Poirot gestured for him to bring it closer. The package was small, wrapped in plain brown paper and sealed with red wax. Breaking the seal, Poirot extracted a letter. The handwriting was neat and precise, the ink still fresh. He read aloud carefully. "Edward, the past you thought buried is rising. Trust none in Greyhaven. Midnight will reveal the truth." Clara gasped. Who would send such a message? Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Someone intimately familiar with Lord Grey's history, someone who wishes to remind him of secrets long hidden. And note the timing. Midnight, the hour at which his life was taken." Dr. Finch frowned. "So the pendant and this letter are connected?" "Indubitably," Poirot replied. "Both point to premeditation, both suggest knowledge, and both carry messages. Our victim's death was no accident, but a deliberate act orchestrated with cunning." Poirot studied the pendant once more. "Mon ami Japp, we must investigate the origin of this pendant. Its journey may reveal the murderer. There is salt, suggesting a coastal region. There is the perfume, suggesting a woman's hand. There is engraving, suggesting a family secret. Altogether, it is a roadmap, hidden in plain sight. He leaned back, eyes closed, contemplating the myriad possibilities. Consider, mes amis, the psychology. The sender, or perhaps the killer, wishes us to notice the pendant. It is a lure, a challenge. Whoever holds the key to its secret may be among us, hiding behind the mask of grief and propriety. Japp muttered, "It's maddening. Where do we start?" Poirot opened his eyes slowly. "We begin with observation, with inquiry, and with patience. First, we shall examine the family connections, the correspondences, the recent visitors to Greyhaven Manor. Then we shall study the pendant in its entirety, measuring, observing, and interpreting. Nothing must escape our attention. Everything has meaning." He rose and placed the pendant carefully back on the velvet cloth, arranging it so that the light caught every curve and line. "We will also interrogate those who handled it recently. Every gesture, every hesitation, every word may reveal the truth." Clara, her fear mingling with curiosity, asked softly, "Do you think the killer is still here, Poirot?" "Possibly, mademoiselle. The cleverest murderers are those who remain near the scene, watching as others investigate, believing themselves concealed. But remember, no detail escapes my notice. No action is too small. Greyhaven Manor will speak, and I shall listen." The morning progressed into afternoon, and the library became a hub of quiet activity. Poirot, with magnifying glass in hand, studied the pendant from every conceivable angle, noting scratches, engraving, traces of perfume, and tiny flecks of salt. Each observation was meticulously recorded, cross-referenced with letters, accounts, and recollections from the household. Finally, Poirot sat back, a faint smile on his face, the eyes twinkling with satisfaction. "Mon ami," he said to Japp, "the silver pendant is not merely a trinket. It is a message, a map, and a declaration. Its secrets shall guide us to the mind behind this crime. And when we uncover it, the truth will shine as clearly as the morning sun, even brighter perhaps, for its cunning concealment." Outside, the fog had lifted entirely, revealing the manicured gardens of Greyhaven Manor in full morning light. Yet within the house, shadows lingered, not in corners but in hearts. Secrets waited patiently, and the silver pendant held the first key to unlocking them. And in the quiet, methodical precision of Hercule Poirot, the investigation began in earnest, guided by fear, by subtle evidence, and by the delicate whispers of a silver pendant that knew far more than anyone suspected. Chapter 4. Whispers in the Hallway. The afternoon sunlight, though pale and hesitant, filtered through the tall mullioned windows of Greyhaven Manor, casting geometric patterns upon the worn oak floors. Yet the warmth of day seemed ill-suited to the atmosphere inside the house, where shadows clung stubbornly to corners and the air was heavy with secrets and unspoken fears. The events of the previous night had left the household in a fragile state. Anxiety had settled over the estate like a second fog, one that no sunlight could disperse. Hercule Poirot walked slowly through the long, dim corridor connecting the library to the east wing. His steps were measured, his hands clasped behind his back, his eyes taking in every detail. He paused frequently, listening, not for sound, but for the absence of it, for the subtle vibrations that might betray movement. Every creak of the floorboards, every faint rustle of fabric carried meaning to his keen perception. Inspector Japp followed a few paces behind, noting the detective's meticulous attention. "It's quiet," Japp murmured, though he knew Poirot could hear much more than he. "Too quiet, gives me the creeps." Poirot's gaze flicked to a small crack in the skirting board. "Ah, mon ami, the quiet is deceptive. Silence is not emptiness, it is anticipation. Listen carefully. Every whisper, every half-step may tell us more than any confession ever could." The sudden, almost imperceptible sound of a footstep echoed down the corridor. Poirot's eyes narrowed and he signaled Jap to remain still. The step was light, deliberate, careful. Someone was moving through the manor with the utmost discretion. "There," Poirot whispered. "Observe how the intruder, if intruder there be, avoids creaking boards. Notice how deliberate each step is. This is not a servant performing routine duties. This is someone with knowledge of the house, and perhaps with intent." A faint whisper followed, carried on the air as if the walls themselves conspired to reveal the secret. Poirot's ears twitched, capturing fragments of conversation. "Cannot see. Must hide. Wait." The words were incomplete, but the tone carried urgency and fear. Poirot held up a hand. "Shh, listen carefully, Jap. Every word matters." Jap leaned in, trying to catch more, but the whispers faded as quickly as they had arrived. "Did you hear that?" he asked, frowning. "Mais oui," Poirot replied. "And yet it is insufficient. We must follow with caution. The corridor may conceal more than shadows." They proceeded slowly, Poirot leading, his gaze darting from doors to windows, from tapestries to faint scratches on the walls. At the far end of the hallway, the faint sound of a door closing carried an almost musical precision. Poirot stopped. "There," he said. "Someone has entered a room. We shall see who and why. Quietly, mon ami." They approached the eastern wing where the guest rooms were located. The door to one of the smaller chambers was slightly ajar. Poirot motioned for Jap to wait and pushed the door open gently. Inside, the room was empty, but the window was open, letting in the crisp afternoon air. A small chair had been knocked askew and the faint smell of jasmine lingered, echoing the perfume detected on the silver pendant. Poirot knelt, examining the floor. "Ah, traces. Very faint but discernible. Someone passed through here recently carrying something delicate, perhaps a letter, perhaps an object. Observe the floorboards. The pattern of displacement indicates haste yet care. Our visitor did not intend to be seen, yet was careful not to damage the room." Jap frowned. "Could it be one of the household staff?" Poirot shook his head slowly. "No, no. A servant would not move in this manner. Observe the subtle avoidance of the carpet fringe, the deliberate positioning of hands to avoid fingerprints. This is calculated, intentional. And the presence of jasmine, perfume, suggests feminine involvement, or at least an attempt to mislead." Clara Gray entered quietly, her face pale. "Monsieur Poirot," she whispered, "I heard voices, whispers just now. In the hallway, they were urgent, like someone was hiding something." Poirot gestured for her to remain calm. "Ah, mademoiselle, you are correct. Whispers are often more revealing than speech. They betray emotion, fear, and knowledge. Now tell me, have you observed anyone moving unusually today?" Clara hesitated, her eyes flicking toward the closed door at the end of the corridor. I thought I saw Dr. Finch near the east wing just before lunch. He seemed anxious, but I could not be certain. He walked quickly, then paused as if listening for something. Perhaps it was nothing." Poirot's lips twitched. "Ah, mademoiselle, nothing is rarely nothing in matters of investigation. Let us observe further." They moved quietly down the corridor. The manor seemed to hold its breath. Doors along the way remained closed, though the faintest creak occasionally betrayed minor disturbances. The subtle scent of jasmine persisted, carried faintly on the air currents, hinting at movement just beyond sight. As they approached the far end, a sudden sound froze them both, the soft rustle of paper followed by the unmistakable whisper of a voice. "Cannot leave. Must wait." Poirot signaled Jap to remain silent and stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. The voice emanated from behind a partially closed door, Lord Grey's former study now locked. The whispers were frantic yet careful, like someone attempting to control panic while hiding their presence. Poirot placed a finger to his lips. "Observe, Jap. The speaker is unaware we are so close. They believe themselves unseen, yet we are watching with greater perception than they imagine." A soft metallic click followed, and the door opened slightly. A figure slipped through, moving with cat-like stealth. Poirot observed silently. A woman cloaked in dark fabric, her movements deliberate and precise. In her hands, she held a small, delicate object, the silver pendant itself. Jap's eyes widened. "By God, Poirot, she's got the pendant." Poirot's voice was a quiet command. "Do not alert her. Observe only. Every gesture, every hesitation is a clue." The woman paused at the window, glancing toward the corridor. Her face was partially hidden, but Poirot discerned the faintest trace of recognition or fear. She opened the window, setting the pendant carefully on the sill, then stepped out onto the roof ledge, moving with astonishing agility. A whisper followed her, almost lost to the wind. "Must hide. Must not fail." Poirot stepped back, closing the door gently. Mon ami observed the psychology. She moves with purpose, yet her hesitation betrays awareness of danger. She is delivering something, either the pendant or a message, and she believes herself clever yet overlooks the obvious. Her presence is now known to us. Jap exhaled. "So, what now? Do we follow her?" Poirot shook his head. "Patience. We must understand her purpose first. The act itself, the whispers, the delivery, the careful handling, speaks volumes. She is involved, yes, but to what extent remains unclear. And note, the pendant remains the focal point. Whoever controls the pendant may control the narrative." Clara, standing behind them, whispered, "Do you think it's Lady Grey? Or one of the staff?" Poirot's eyes twitched slightly. "No, mademoiselle, the gestures are not consistent with either. Lady Grey moves with formality, staff with routine. This is someone intimately familiar with our victim's habits, with the importance of the pendant. Someone with knowledge and intent." They returned to the library, closing the door behind them. Poirot placed the pendant carefully on the velvet cloth once more, studying its subtle details under the afternoon light. "Observe, mes amis, the trajectory of events. The whispers in the hallway were a lure, yet they also revealed intent, urgency, and fear. The perpetrator wishes to control perception, to mislead investigators while continuing their purpose undisturbed. And here the pendant remains the key, the constant, the signal through which we may unravel the mystery." Jap shook his head. "It's maddening. Every time we think we've got a lead, it slips away." Poirot smiled faintly, the faintest curve of satisfaction touching his lips. "Mon ami, that is precisely why observation and patience are essential. The mind must sift through shadows, extract meaning from whispers, and discern truth from illusion. And trust me, the silver pendant, the whispers, and the movements of those within this house will guide us. Slowly, methodically, the veil will lift." As evening approached, the atmosphere in Greyhaven Manor grew tense. The whispers had ceased, but the memory of them lingered, a spectral reminder that someone, or several, among the household was hiding knowledge and perhaps guilt. Poirot moved deliberately through the hallways once more, noting the positions of furniture, the faint impressions on rugs, and the subtle alignment of objects. Each item, each whisper, each shadow was part of the puzzle. Finally, he paused at the library door, looking back at Jap and Clara. "Tonight, mes amis, we shall observe further. The house speaks in whispers, in movements, in scent and light. And the silver pendant, the secret within it, will continue to guide us, revealing truths that are otherwise hidden. patience, precision, and perception. These are our allies, and the murderer, whoever they may be, is closer than they realize. Outside, the fading sunlight cast long shadows over Greyhaven Manor. Within, whispers had been heard and secrets glimpsed, and in the quiet anticipation of evening, the mystery deepened. Chapter 5. The Alibi Web. The evening descended upon Greyhaven Manor with the soft hush of falling leaves, painting the grand estate in shades of amber and shadow. The fog that had so stubbornly lingered throughout the morning had lifted from the gardens, but inside the house, a different kind of fog persisted, a fog of suspicion, half-truths, and unspoken anxieties. The household had gathered in the drawing room at Poirot's request, the air thick with tension and anticipation. Hercule Poirot sat near the hearth, his eyes surveying the assembled figures. Lady Margaret Grey, composed yet pale. Clara Grey, still trembling with fear. Dr. Finch, measured and precise. Mr. Hollingsworth, the ever-dutiful butler, and a few senior servants who had been called forward for questioning. Each face bore the same expression, uncertainty masked by civility. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice calm yet commanding, "tonight we shall unravel the web of alibis. Every statement, every movement, every gesture, these are threads. Some are truth, some deception, and within the pattern lies the murderer." He gestured to Clara first. "Mademoiselle, let us begin with you. Where were you during the hours preceding your uncle's death?" Clara clutched her shawl, her voice quivering slightly. I was in my room after dinner. I came briefly to the library to speak with Uncle Edward, then returned. I did not leave the East Wing after that." Poirot nodded, his gaze piercing. "Did you notice anyone moving unusually?" Clara hesitated, then added, "I thought I saw Dr. Finch near the East Corridor. He seemed agitated, but perhaps I imagined it." Poirot made a small note in his mental ledger. "Very well. Agitation observed or imagined is still observed. We shall verify." Next, Poirot turned to Lady Grey. "Madam, your movements, please." Lady Grey's voice was steady. "After dinner, I retired to my room. I did not leave except to inquire if my niece required anything. I was unaware of any disturbances until the scream was heard." Poirot inclined his head subtly, noting the precise wording. "Ah, very deliberate phrasing. I was unaware of any disturbances. We shall keep this in mind." Dr. Finch's turn followed. "I was in my study preparing notes. I did not leave except to check the library when the scream was heard. I then attempted to assist immediately." Poirot's eyes twitched. "Ah, indeed. The study is near the East Wing. You would have passed several hallways. Did you encounter anyone?" Dr. Finch hesitated. "No, I did not see anyone." Poirot's gaze sharpened. "No one? Or no one you admit to seeing?" The doctor swallowed and remained silent. Poirot did not press further immediately, but he filed the hesitation carefully in his mind. Finally, Mr. Hollingsworth gave his account. "I oversaw the closing of windows and lamps, then prepared tea. I remained in the kitchen until the scream was heard." Poirot's eyes swept the room. "Very good. Each account seems straightforward. And yet, mon ami, the truth rarely is. Let us examine it in sequence." Dinner concluded, Lady Grey retires. Clara visits the library briefly. Dr. Finch remains in his study. Hollingsworth attends the kitchen. And yet, he held up a finger for emphasis, and yet a figure was observed in the East Wing corridor around the same time. A woman carrying a small object, the pendant. Who among you was near this area at that precise hour? A hush fell over the room. Clara's eyes widened, Lady Grey's posture stiffened, and Dr. Finch shifted uneasily. Poirot's gaze fixed on each of them in turn. Dr. Finch, he said softly, you were seen according to independent observation near the corridor, yet your statement denies encountering anyone. How do you reconcile this? The doctor's hands trembled slightly. I was there briefly, yes. I did not encounter anyone, I swear. I was merely passing to check on a medical book I had left in the hall. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Ah, a minor detail, perhaps, but in investigation the minor is often the major. Your presence, combined with agitation observed by another, requires verification. Clara spoke up hesitantly. I thought I saw someone, yes, but it was so quick I cannot be certain. Poirot's expression softened momentarily. Observation, mademoiselle, is not guilt. It is perception. Your report corroborates the presence of another, though not identity. And this is precisely why alibis must be examined critically. One lie, one omission may unravel the entire web. He turned to Lady Grey. Madame, you claim to have been unaware. Yet one's awareness is a delicate thing. One can hear, one can sense, one can observe without conscious acknowledgement. Were you truly absent of perception? Lady Grey's lips pressed into a thin line. I cannot say for certain, but I was in my room. Poirot's eyes twitched slightly as if satisfied with her subtle honesty. Very well, we shall keep this in mind. He turned to the assembled servants. And you, who were closest to the kitchens and corridors, did any of you notice unusual movements? Unusual persons? Or unusual sounds? A footman cleared his throat. I thought I heard whispers near the east corridor. Faint. Almost as if someone were arguing quietly. But I cannot say who. Poirot's fingers steepled. Ah, whispers, yes. Whispered words often betray more than speech delivered openly. The tone, the hesitation, the urgency, these are all indicators. And the object carried by the whisperer, the pendant, is central. Whoever moved it is involved, directly or indirectly. He paused, letting his words sink in, then continued. We now see that multiple accounts conflict slightly, not dramatically, but enough to require attention. Clara's observation, Dr. Finch's partial presence, the servants' whispers, all form a network. And within that network, truth and deception intertwine like threads in a delicate tapestry. Japp muttered under his breath. So everyone's story is a little off? Poirot twitched his mustache. Precisely, mon ami. No one lies completely, no one tells the whole truth. But small inconsistencies, gestures, timings, hesitations reveal intent. And intent, we know, is the window into action. Tonight we shall test these alibis against observed facts, and perhaps the web of deception will begin to unravel. He rose, moving to the window and looking out toward the gardens where the last light of day touched the hedges and fountains. Observe, mes amis, how tension accumulates. Suspicion, when nurtured carefully, exposes the character of each individual. And in Greyhaven Manor, the past and present intertwine, bringing hidden truths to light. Every whisper, every glance, every gesture carries meaning, and those who believe themselves clever often fail to notice the precision with which others observe them. Poirot turned, his gaze sweeping the room. Tonight, we shall reconstruct movements piece by piece. Who left their rooms, who passed through corridors, who saw or heard what. And from this reconstruction the truth shall emerge. Patience, observation, and careful questioning. These are our instruments. The alibi web is intricate, yes, but it is not impenetrable. One thread pulled correctly will reveal the rest. The room fell silent, each person pondering the weight of Poirot's words. Outside, shadows lengthened across the grounds, and the first chill of evening crept through the manor. Within, tension coiled like a spring ready to snap, and in that silence the truth lay hidden, waiting for Poirot's careful mind to untangle it. Chapter 6. A Letter from the Past. The evening had settled into a hushed stillness at Greyhaven Manor, the flickering glow of candlelight casting long, trembling shadows across the high-ceilinged drawing room. Outside, the gardens were silent, the once bright leaves now dulled in the dimness, rustling faintly in a chill wind. Within, the household moved cautiously, the weight of suspicion pressing on every heart. The events of the previous night and the unraveling of alibis had left nerves frayed, each individual aware that hidden truths might surface at any moment. Hercule Poirot stood near the mantelpiece, his hands clasped behind his back, his sharp eyes scanning the room. The silver pendant rested carefully on the velvet cloth beside him, the subtle gleam catching the light like a watchful eye. His mind, as always, was active, threading together clues, tracing gestures, examining inconsistencies. Yet another revelation awaited, one that would change the course of the investigation. "Inspector Japp," Poirot said softly, breaking the silence. "We must consider the past. The present, though dramatic, is but a reflection of history. Secrets buried, letters hidden, actions forgotten. These often hold the key to understanding murder." Japp leaned against the table, rubbing his chin. "You mean something in the house we've missed?" Poirot's lips twitched in a faint smile. "Mais oui. Every house, of age and distinction such as Greyhaven Manor, conceals layers of memory, and sometimes the past speaks through objects, through paper, through whispers." Just then Mr. Hollingsworth entered, his expression unusually tight. "Monsieur Poirot, I found something in the library behind a row of books, a small envelope yellowed with age. No name, no indication of sender." Poirot's eyes brightened. "Ah, excellent. Bring it here." The butler handed over the envelope with careful reverence. Poirot examined it, noting the delicate script that had faded but remained legible. The handwriting is familiar, though deliberately disguised. Let us see what secrets it contains." Breaking the seal, he withdrew a single sheet of paper, its surface brittle, the ink faint. He read aloud, his voice calm, deliberate. "Edward, beware the ties of blood. Secrets long buried will rise and loyalty will falter. Trust none, not even those nearest. Your actions may cost you more than you imagine." Clara Gray gasped. It's addressed to Uncle Edward? But who could have written it?" Poirot's eyes twitched. "Ah, mademoiselle, therein lies the intrigue. This letter is old, perhaps years in its concealment, yet it carries a warning, a premonition. Observe the language, cautionary, almost conspiratorial. Someone knew your uncle, intimately, and wished him to fear consequences of past acts." Lady Grey, standing nearby, leaned forward, her voice controlled but curious. "Edward never mentioned any such letter to me. I had no knowledge of it." Poirot's gaze fixed on her. "Ah, madam, the absence of knowledge is itself revealing. Either you were deliberately kept in the dark, or your memory is selective. Note also the content. It speaks of betrayal, loyalty, and blood ties. Very significant. This letter is a clue to motive, perhaps even to identity." Dr. Finch, who had been quietly observing, spoke cautiously. "Could this letter be a forgery? Someone trying to create fear?" Poirot considered this. Possibly, but observe the age of the paper, the fading of the ink, the method of concealment. A contemporary forgery is unlikely to appear aged so convincingly. It is far more probable that it is authentic, a relic of past intrigue now emerging to haunt the present. He turned to Clara. "Mademoiselle, do you know of any distant relatives, old family conflicts, or disputes that might be relevant?" Clara shook her head, though her brow furrowed. "There were whispers when I was younger. cousins with claims to the estate, disputes over inheritances, some old scandal involving Uncle Edward's business ventures, but I never knew details. Father forbade such discussions. Poirot nodded, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. Ah, exactly. The letter's warning suggests that the past holds a key to the present. Whoever sent, or hid, this message possesses knowledge of both history and motive. This is precisely the kind of revelation that leads us closer to the murderer. He carefully placed the letter beside the silver pendant on the velvet cloth, observing the alignment. Notice, mes amis, how the pendant and the letter together create a narrative. The pendant carries a personal connection, a message through intimate channels. The letter carries historical warning, a threat veiled in caution. The combination of these two items points to someone not only with access but with deep understanding of Lord Edward Grey's life and fears. Japp frowned. So you think the killer is someone from the past? Or at least someone who knows it very well? Poirot's eyes twitched. Indubitably. The murderer exploits both personal attachment and historical knowledge. Observe, mon ami, the elegance of this crime. One can manipulate fear, one can manipulate objects, and one can remain in plain sight. And yet subtle traces, the perfume on the pendant, the whispers in the hallway, and now the letter betray intent, motive, and presence. Lady Grey shifted slightly, her composure intact yet tension evident. Could this letter explain Edward's behavior last night? His anxiety, clutching the pendant? Poirot's eyes twitched. Precisely. Fear of past exposure, of betrayal, of consequences long hidden, all could provoke a reaction, especially in one so meticulous as your uncle. And that fear, mes amis, can be lethal when exploited by one with cunning and patience. He turned to the assembled group. Tonight we shall examine the hidden corners, the private drawers, the forgotten correspondence. If the past communicates with us, we must listen carefully. Every scrap of paper, every forgotten note may hold the truth. Clara's voice was soft, almost a whisper. But who would want to harm Uncle Edward over something so old? Poirot's gaze swept over her, calm but firm. Mademoiselle, when one's secrets are threatened, even a seemingly small wrong can become motive for the greatest of crimes. Remember, the mind, when driven by fear, revenge, or greed, can execute plans most meticulous. And the silver pendant, along with this letter, shows that someone orchestrated events deliberately, calculating every moment. Japp muttered. So, it's all about secrets and old grudges, then? Poirot's eyes twitched in what could almost be amusement. Oui, mon ami, but it is also about understanding human nature. The past, when combined with opportunity, creates motive. And the cleverest murderer anticipates perception, planting objects, leaving messages, whispering warnings, and exploiting fear. Here in Greyhaven Manor, the past is speaking, and we must listen. He carefully arranged the letter and pendant together, as if connecting two pieces of a puzzle. Tomorrow we shall follow this trail further. The letter, the pendant, and the whispers, they guide us. Whoever seeks to hide truth behind shadows will be discovered, for patience, observation, and intellect reveal even the most carefully concealed deeds. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, carrying the faint scent of jasmine once more. Inside, Greyhaven Manor remained still, the secrets of the past and present poised delicately on the edge of revelation. And in the quiet determination of Hercule Poirot, the threads of history began to interweave with the events of the night, bringing the household closer to a truth that had long been concealed. Chapter 7. The Unseen Observer. Night had fallen over Greyhaven Manor, cloaking the estate in a quiet darkness that seemed almost sentient. The faint glow of gas lamps cast flickering shadows along the hallways, the distorted forms stretching and shrinking across the walls as if alive. The manor, so grand and imposing by day, took on an air of suspenseful menace in the night, each corner a potential hiding place, each corridor a stage for secrets to unfold. Hercule Poirot moved silently through the drawing room, his movements deliberate, measured, and precise. Inspector Japp followed, holding a small lantern that barely penetrated the gloom. The household had been instructed to remain in their quarters, yet Poirot sensed a presence, one hidden, watching, waiting. The detective's keen eyes scanned the shadows, noting the smallest irregularities. A draft through a slightly ajar window, the unusual positioning of furniture, a faint reflection in the polished surface of a sideboard. "Mon ami," Poirot whispered, "the night has a voice, a presence, and in this manner someone moves unseen, observing, listening. Our task is to locate this observer before they interfere further," Japp muttered. "Could it be another guest? One of the servants?" Poirot shook his head. "No. A servant would not move with such caution, nor would a guest risk exposure without purpose. This is deliberate, calculated. Observe carefully, Japp. The movements we have noted are purposeful, not casual." As they moved toward the eastern wing, a faint sound drew Poirot's attention, the softest click of metal against wood. He halted, his ear attuned to the slight disturbance. "Listen," he whispered. "Someone has touched a latch, a door, perhaps a drawer." They approached cautiously, and Poirot motioned for silence. Ahead lay the study where Lord Edward Grey had spent countless hours alone. The room appeared still, yet subtle evidence betrayed recent disturbance. Papers were slightly misaligned on the desk, a chair tilted, and faint traces of dust displaced along the carpet. Poirot bent to examine the floor. "Ah, footprints," he murmured. "Very small, delicate, yet distinct. A woman's shoe, narrow and fitted. Someone moved with care and deliberation. Our observer is skilled, yet anxious." Japp frowned. "Do you think it's the same woman we saw with the pendant?" Poirot's eyes twitched. "Most likely, mon ami, the connection is evident. But note, last night's activity and tonight's presence are separate acts. Our observer returns with intent, perhaps to retrieve information or ensure secrecy. Observe the psychology. Someone familiar with the house, knowledgeable yet careful not to leave direct evidence." Suddenly a faint rustle echoed behind the heavy curtains. Poirot's gaze sharpened. "Ah, there, a shadow. Observe the hesitation. The figure does not move freely. Fear and purpose coexist. Whoever it is, they are aware of our presence, yet assume concealment sufficient." Poirot stepped forward, gently pulling the curtain aside. A small, furtive figure slipped backward, attempting to melt into the shadows of the corner. But Poirot had already noted the posture, the subtle outline, and the delicate, precise hands. He extended a calm, deliberate voice. "Bonsoir, mademoiselle. You are observed, and yet you believe yourself hidden. Come forward and speak. Resistance is futile, for observation does not rely on confrontation, but on patience and perception." The figure froze, then slowly stepped into the light. A young woman dressed in dark, modest attire, her expression a mix of fear and defiance. In her hand, she held a folded piece of paper, trembling slightly. Poirot's gaze studied her intently. "Aye. And here is our unseen observer. Tell me, mademoiselle, what is your purpose? Why do you roam the manor in secrecy?" The woman's voice quivered. I meant no harm, Monsieur Poirot. I needed to see the pendant. I thought perhaps I could ensure it remained safe. I did not know anyone else was aware." Poirot's eyes twitched, a faint glimmer of amusement crossing his features. Ah, intent is clear. You fear for the pendant. You moved carefully, yet your fear betrayed you. Why do you fear it? Who sent you? I was instructed by someone long ago connected to the Grey family, she confessed. The pendant. It carries a message, a warning. I was told to guard it, to protect its secret. I did not think it would lead to murder. Jap muttered under his breath. Guard it. And now murder has happened. Great timing. Poirot ignored the comment, focusing on the observer. Ah, mon ami, observe the psychology. She acts from loyalty or fear. She may be a witness or a pawn, but the facts remain. The pendant's secret is the focal point, and someone else exploited it to commit murder. Clara, who had been quietly watching from the doorway, asked softly, So she's not the killer? Poirot shook his head. No, mademoiselle. She is a guardian of knowledge, not an agent of death. Yet her actions, however innocent in intent, intersect with the crime. We must understand fully whom she serves, what instructions she followed, and what she knows of the night's events. The young woman nodded, tears glimmering in her eyes. I only wanted to protect it. I did not know it would cause this. Poirot stepped closer, his voice calm yet firm. Mon ami, the truth is often entangled with intent. Fear, loyalty, and secrecy all converge in one act. You have revealed a fragment of the story, yet the web is not complete. Tell us everything you know about the pendant, its past, and its message. She swallowed, her hands shaking as she handed the folded paper from her pocket. Poirot unfolded it carefully. The writing was neat, precise, and in a familiar hand, matching the style of the letter found earlier. It contained instructions for the care of the pendant, warnings about those who might seek it, and hints of long-held family secrets. Ah, excellent, Poirot murmured. This confirms our suspicion. The pendant is the key to understanding motive, and our observer, though innocent in action, was privy to information vital to the case. Every detail, every precaution, every hidden step reveals intention and therefore guides us toward the perpetrator. Jap rubbed his temples. So now we have a witness, and another piece of the puzzle. But how do we find the killer? Poirot's eyes twitched and he smiled faintly. Patience, mon ami. The night is long, but the mind is precise. Observation, careful analysis, and understanding of human behavior, these are our tools. And tonight we have discovered a critical element. Someone has been watching yet was not aware of being observed. The unseen observer has revealed herself and in doing so has brought us closer to the truth. Soon all threads shall converge. The young woman nodded silently, realizing the weight of her confession. Outside, the wind whispered through the tall trees surrounding Greyhaven Manor, carrying with it a faint scent of jasmine, a reminder of past movements and secret passages. Inside, the candlelight flickered across the polished floors and dark corners, illuminating shadows and revealing the unseen. Poirot stood in quiet contemplation, eyes narrowing as he considered the implications. The unseen observer was no longer hidden, yet her knowledge linked directly to the crime. With every secret revealed, the puzzle shifted, bringing clarity where once there was only uncertainty. And within Greyhaven Manor, the tension thickened, drawing all closer to the inevitable revelation of the murderer's identity. Chapter 8. The Confession in Shadows. Greyhaven Manor seemed to hold its breath as the night deepened. The hallways lined with portraits of ancestors whose eyes seemed to follow every movement were bathed in the pale, wavering glow of candlelight. Shadows stretched across the ornate carpets, pooling in corners and whispering secrets long buried. The household had retired to their rooms, but a tension lingered, a tension born not of fatigue but of anticipation. Something pivotal was about to unfold. Hercule Poirot, Inspector Japp and the young woman who had revealed herself as the unseen observer gathered quietly in the library. The silver pendant and the aged letter lay on the velvet cloth, illuminated by a single candle. Poirot's eyes flicked between the objects, the observer and the detective. Mes amis, tonight we must reconcile what has been hidden with what is now revealed. The shadows, though dark, often conceal the truth, yet they can also illuminate it when approached with precision. Japp frowned. We've had sightings, whispers, letters, and now a secret watcher. How do we find the killer before they strike again? Poirot's mustache twitched, a faint smile appearing. Ah, mon ami, the killer has already acted. What we now seek is understanding, the confession that lies within shadows. Observe carefully. Guilt does not always speak openly, yet it cannot fully conceal itself. The young observer spoke softly, her voice trembling. Monsieur Poirot, I know something more, something that might help. It is about the pendant, the letter, and the night your uncle was killed. Poirot leaned forward, his sharp eyes attentive. Ah, excellent. Every detail is valuable. Speak freely, mademoiselle. Do not fear repercussions. Your honesty is essential. She nodded, clutching a small scrap of paper she had kept hidden. I overheard a conversation between Dr. Finch and another person last night. I cannot recall exactly who, but they spoke of the pendant, of ensuring certain secrets remained buried, and I heard them mention removing Uncle Edward. Poirot's eyes twitched, his attention fully captured. Indeed, and this aligns with our previous observations. The agitation, the careful corridor movements, and the manipulation of objects. Now we must identify who this person was. Describe their voice, their mannerisms. The observer hesitated. It was calm, precise, but there was an undercurrent of fear and urgency. Someone who knew the house well, someone meticulous. Japp muttered, well, that could describe half of the people in this house. Poirot ignored him. No, mon ami. The combination of meticulousness, fear, and intimate knowledge narrows possibilities considerably. Observe also the intent. They sought control over information, and they sought to manipulate perception. Such behavior is rarely random. The candle flickered, casting shifting shadows across the library. Poirot rose and moved toward the window, observing the gardens in the darkness beyond. The killer believes themselves hidden in shadows, yet shadows are deceptive. They obscure, yes, but also reveal through absence, hesitation, and inconsistency. He turned back to the observer. You mentioned overhearing Dr. Finch. Are you certain of the timing? Yes, Monsieur Poirot, just before the scream. I had been moving quietly, ensuring the pendant was safe. I froze when I heard voices. They spoke in hushed tones, as if confident no one could hear. And yet, I heard them. Poirot nodded slowly, digesting the information. Ah, the confession hidden in shadows. Not a literal confession, but one expressed inadvertently, betrayed by fear and urgency. Very revealing. We now understand intent and proximity, though the individual's identity must still be confirmed. He picked up the silver pendant, examining it under the candlelight. Notice the delicate scratches, the traces of perfume, the salt residue. They indicate presence and movement. Compare these with the observer's account. The precise handling, the whispered conversations, the timing. Each element corroborates the other. The shadows conceal, yes, but they also connect. Japp leaned forward, frustrated. So what do we do next? We've got a witness who heard a confession and a pendant that's central, but how do we pin it on the killer? Poirot's eyes twitched in amusement. Patience, mon ami. The threads are converging. Shadows do not merely conceal, they betray. One slip, one hesitation, one inconsistency will reveal the individual. And our unseen observer has given us the critical clue. The words spoken, though intended to be private, were overheard. Intent, as always, is our guide. The observer shivered slightly. I fear they might know I heard them. Poirot's gaze was reassuring. Mon ami, fear is natural, but recall, the cleverest criminals often underestimate the observant. By providing this information, you have illuminated a path through darkness. Now we shall act methodically. He moved to a small desk, retrieving a notebook. We shall reconstruct movements, voices, and actions in sequence. Every corridor, every room, every whisper is a piece of the puzzle. The confession in shadows, when properly analyzed, points unmistakably to the guilty party. He turned to Jap. Inspector, you shall verify the timing of events, the alibis, and cross-reference these with our observations. Look for hesitation, inconsistency, and subtle deception. Jap nodded. Understood. Poirot's attention returned to the young observer. And you, mademoiselle, continue to recall any detail, gestures, tones, steps, sense. Nothing is insignificant. Shadows conceal all, but nothing escapes the eyes of the observant. She nodded, steeling herself. I will do my best, Monsieur Poirot. The detective's eyes flicked to the candle flame, then back to the objects on the velvet cloth. Observe, mes amis, how the confession, though unspoken directly, has illuminated motive, opportunity, and intent. Shadows are deceptive, yet they reveal when approached with precision. The murderer believes themselves hidden, yet they are already exposed by their own actions. A quiet resolve filled the room. Outside, the night pressed in on Greyhaven Manor, the wind rustling the trees, carrying the faint scent of jasmine once more. Within, the candlelight flickered, illuminating subtle changes in expression and posture. The confession in shadows had not named the killer outright, but it had revealed a vulnerability, a weakness to be exploited by careful observation. Poirot rose, standing tall and calm, the epitome of composure. Tomorrow we shall confront the web of deception. The unseen observer has provided insight, and the confession in shadows guides us. Patience, analysis, and intellect will lead to revelation. The murderer, though hidden in darkness, will not remain so. All threads converge eventually, and the truth shall emerge, undeniable and complete. The young observer exhaled softly, realizing the magnitude of her contribution. Jap scribbled notes furiously, piecing together timelines and accounts. Poirot's eyes twitched with satisfaction as he contemplated the unfolding resolution. Greyhaven Manor, so silent and shadowed, had revealed yet another clue, one that brought them closer to the heart of the mystery. Chapter 9. The trap is set. The first light of dawn had not yet touched Greyhaven Manor, and the estate lay wrapped in a preternatural stillness. The halls were empty, the faint echoes of the night's whispers lingering like ghosts. Hercule Poirot, with meticulous care, moved through the library, arranging objects on the velvet cloth with deliberate precision. The silver pendant, the aged letter, and a selection of other small clues he had collected over the past nights. Each item was placed as both bait and signal, part of a plan designed to draw the guilty party into revealing themselves. Inspector Jap observed a mixture of curiosity and impatience in his expression. Poirot, you've been at this since before dawn. How exactly do you intend to catch the murderer? Poirot's eyes twitched with satisfaction. Mon ami, the murderer believes themselves clever, untouchable, unseen. But cleverness often leads to overconfidence. By arranging the pendant and letter strategically, by informing the household of a planned search, we create a psychological pressure, a trap. Jap raised an eyebrow. Pressure? You mean we bait them into a mistake? Poirot smiled faintly. Exactament. Human nature is predictable, especially under fear, greed, or the desire to control perception. The guilty party will act to protect themselves and in doing so reveal their presence, intentions, and, most importantly, themselves. The young observer, still pale from the revelations of the previous night, watched quietly. "Do you think they'll come tonight?" she asked. "Ah, mon ami, they will," Poirot replied. The pendant's allure, the letter's warning, the implied surveillance, all are irresistible to the guilty mind. And now, we wait. By mid-morning, the household had gathered in the drawing room at Poirot's request. There was a palpable tension in the air, a sense that something monumental was about to occur. Each individual was instructed to remain visible, yet Poirot observed their reactions with minute precision. A twitch of the hand, a hesitant glance, a tightened jaw. Subtle gestures revealed far more than words ever could. "Mes amis," Poirot announced, his voice calm and authoritative, "we shall conduct a thorough examination of the manor. Every room, every corridor, every hidden space. This is not only to find what was taken, but to test honesty and presence. Those who act truthfully shall remain at ease. Those who act otherwise shall betray themselves." As the search began, Poirot's eyes tracked every movement. Clara Gray moved carefully but naturally, Lady Gray maintained composure, and the servants executed their tasks with disciplined efficiency. Dr. Finch, however, lingered near the east wing, glancing repeatedly toward the pendant and the letter. His motions were deliberate, yet there was an undercurrent of tension, a hesitation in the steps he took. Poirot's gaze followed him silently. "Observe, Jap. The guilty always reveals themselves through micro-behavior. Note the avoidance of eye contact, the careful avoidance of direct interaction, the subtle tremor in fingers." Jap muttered, "So, you're saying he's nervous, and that's enough to accuse him?" Poirot shook his head. "Non, mon ami, nervousness alone is not guilt. But combined with opportunity, prior agitation, overheard confessions, and proximity to critical objects, it forms a pattern. And patterns, mes amis, are the language of truth." By late afternoon, Poirot had arranged a scenario he knew would provoke action. A staged absence of the pendant, an implied vulnerability of the letter, and a suggestion that an inspection of all hidden compartments would occur shortly. He then observed silently from the shadows of the library, his keen eyes catching every gesture and glance. It did not take long. Dr. Finch, under the pretense of checking the study, moved toward the east wing corridor with careful, deliberate steps. He paused near a window, glancing nervously toward the library, then crouched, reaching for a hidden panel in the wall, where he believed the pendant had been left unattended. Poirot emerged quietly, his presence sudden yet controlled. "Monsieur Finch," he said, his voice calm but commanding, "I believe you seek to secure the pendant, is it not?" Dr. Finch froze, his hands suspended in mid-air, the carefully concealed object now exposed, his face drained of color. I, oui, mon ami," Poirot interrupted, his eyes gleaming with quiet satisfaction. "You see, the trap is effective because it appeals to intent and fear. You acted to preserve secrecy, yet in doing so you revealed yourself. The pendant, the letter, the shadows, the whispers, all guided your hand, and we observed." Dr. Finch's composure broke. It was necessary. Edward, he had secrets that could ruin lives. I tried only to protect them, to ensure that nothing dangerous was revealed." "And yet," Poirot said softly, "protection does not excuse murder. Your intention to manipulate, to conceal, to act in shadows led directly to tragedy. Intent and consequence are inseparable in the eyes of justice." Clara's eyes widened. So he's the one who... Yes, mademoiselle, Poirot replied, placing the pendant carefully back on the velvet cloth. Dr. Finch, by exploiting knowledge of past events, manipulating perception and attempting to control information, became both the architect and agent of the fatal act. The confession in shadows, the careful observation and the psychological pressure of the trap revealed your guilt. You believed yourself unseen, but observation is not limited to the eye. It encompasses deduction, timing, and understanding of human nature. Dr. Finch sagged into a chair, his shoulders slumping as the weight of exposure settled upon him. I only wanted to prevent scandal, he whispered almost to himself. Poirot's eyes twitched and he nodded. Ah, mon ami. Prevention of scandal does not grant license to murder. But now the web is complete. Every action, every whisper, every gesture has led us here. Justice is not merely the punishment of the act, but the understanding of its cause and the clarity of truth brought into light. Japp exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Well, I'll be... He fell right into it. Poirot smiled faintly. Indeed, Inspector, the trap was not physical but psychological. By understanding human behavior, motives, and the inevitability of action under pressure, we have revealed the perpetrator without confrontation, without chase. The guilty act speaks for itself when carefully observed. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees surrounding Greyhaven Manor, carrying a faint scent of jasmine, as if the estate itself exhaled in relief. Within, tension eased, the household aware that the immediate threat had been exposed. Yet Poirot knew the final resolution. The reckoning of consequences and the reflection of motive would come in due course. He placed the letter beside the pendant once more, observing the arrangement. Mes amis, the trap is set and executed. Truth has emerged from shadows, and justice, though not yet finalized, has been illuminated. The threads of deception have been untangled, and the final act, revelation and resolution, awaits us. Chapter 10. The Truth Unveiled. Greyhaven Manor had awoken to a quiet stillness after the night's revelations. The early morning sun filtered through tall windows, casting long beams of golden light across the polished floors and ancestral portraits. The air, once heavy with tension, now carried the faint sense of anticipation, as though the estate itself waited for the final act to unfold. Hercule Poirot stood in the drawing room, his posture erect, his eyes sharp and contemplative. The silver pendant and the aged letter rested once more on the velvet cloth, symbols of secrets long held and now exposed. Inspector Japp and the young observer were present, along with Lady Grey and Clara, who had gathered to witness the culmination of events. The household felt the weight of closure approaching. Mes amis, Poirot began, his voice calm yet commanding. The events of the past nights have revealed much. Movements, whispers, shadows, and secrets. But understanding the full truth requires us to examine motive, method, and the mind behind the act. Only then can justice be understood. He turned to Dr. Finch, who had remained seated, his hands clasped tightly in front of him, his face pale. Monsieur Finch, you attempted to manipulate both information and perception. Your knowledge of Lord Edward Grey's secrets led you to take actions you believed justified. Tell us plainly, what drove you to this fatal act? Dr. Finch exhaled, a mixture of relief and despair crossing his features. It was fear, Monsieur Poirot. Fear that Edward's past mistakes would ruin many lives. The pendant, the letters, the hidden knowledge, they could expose everything. I thought if I controlled the narrative, if I preserved secrecy, nothing terrible would happen. But I never intended death. Only protection. Poirot's eyes twitched. Ah, protection. A noble motive, but one that ignored morality and law. You saw secrecy as a shield, yet it became a weapon. By acting in shadows, you believed yourself unseen, yet every human action betrays intention. You failed to consider consequences fully. Intent cannot absolve the act. Clara spoke softly, her voice trembling. So, it was about the pendant? About the letter? About secrets? Poirot nodded slowly. Exactly, mademoiselle. The pendant carried personal significance, but it was also a symbol, a vessel of knowledge. The letter contained warnings, historical revelations, and the possibility of scandal. Dr. Finch, in attempting to control these, created a chain of events culminating in tragedy. And yet, the truth, when illuminated, clarifies all. He moved to the center of the room, gesturing toward the pendant and letter. Observe, mes amis, how human nature, fear, and secrecy intertwine. Each small gesture, each hesitation, each whispered warning. These are the threads of understanding. The unseen observer, whose loyalty and courage revealed critical information, guided us to the truth. And the confession in shadows, intent expressed unknowingly, confirmed the perpetrator. Dr. Finch's shoulders slumped further. I see now that my actions were wrong. I wanted to protect, but instead I destroyed. Edward, he did not deserve this. Poirot's eyes softened momentarily. No one is beyond error, mon ami, yet the path to justice requires clarity. By revealing your intent and actions, we understand motive, method, and consequence. This is the essence of resolution. Jap, pacing slightly, muttered, So it's over then. The killer confessed, the secrets revealed. Everyone can finally breathe. Poirot's mustache twitched in subtle amusement. Not quite, Inspector. Understanding does not erase consequence, nor does it erase grief. But it allows closure. The mind, when reconciled with truth, finds peace, even amidst sorrow. And that is why the truth must be unveiled, even when it is uncomfortable. He turned to Lady Grey and Clara. And you, Madame, must now reconcile with what has been hidden in your midst. Knowledge of Dr. Finch's actions, while shocking, provides understanding. The pendant, the letter, the shadows, the observations, they were all pieces of a larger design now revealed. Accepting the truth allows healing and clarity. Lady Grey's voice trembled slightly. It is, difficult, but I see now that secrecy, fear, and intent shaped everything. We must move forward knowing the full truth. Clara nodded, tears glimmering in her eyes. I understand, and I am grateful to Monsieur Poirot for uncovering it, even when the truth was frightening. Poirot's eyes twitched in acknowledgement. Merci, mademoiselle. Courage in the face of revelation is as important as the revelation itself. And courage has guided you all, whether through fear, loyalty, or honesty. Each contribution, however small, has shaped our understanding. He gestured to Dr. Finch. Monsieur Finch, justice now takes its course. The law will decide consequences, but understand this. The mind of the investigator sees motive, intent, and outcome. You have been exposed not through brute force, but through intellect, observation, and understanding of human nature. This is the elegance of detection. Dr. Finch lowered his gaze, resigned but relieved that the truth was acknowledged. I accept it, Monsieur Poirot. I accept responsibility. Poirot returned his attention to the assembled household. Mes amis, Greyhaven Manor has revealed its secrets. The pendant, a vessel of history and warning, the letter, a relic of hidden knowledge, and the observations, each of you played a role in illuminating the truth. Shadows conceal, yes, but they also betray. And when observed with patience, intelligence, and precision, truth emerges undeniable. The young observer stepped forward, a soft smile breaking through her fear. I am glad the truth is known, and that no one else will be harmed. Poirot nodded, satisfied. Indeed, mon ami, awareness and vigilance guide us to resolution. The trap was not merely for the guilty, it was a lesson for all. Observation, understanding, and clarity allow shadows to yield their secrets. The sunlight grew stronger, filling the drawing room with warmth. Greyhaven Manor, once a place of tension, secrets, and danger, now seemed to breathe more freely. The truth had been unveiled, the web of deception untangled, and the household faced the new day with clarity and understanding. Poirot adjusted his jacket, his expression calm yet triumphant. Mes amis, remember this. The human mind, though capable of error, fear, and secrecy, is also capable of revelation, honesty, and courage. Greyhaven Manor has taught us that even in shadows, light knowledge prevails. Justice, truth, and understanding are inseparable. The manor, bathed in morning light, seemed to echo his sentiment. The threads of fear, secrecy, and suspicion had been pulled taut and then released, leaving clarity in their place. And in the quiet satisfaction of Hercule Poirot, the mystery of Greyhaven Manor had reached its conclusion, leaving both revelation and reflection in its wake.